Now we're going to take a look at our player data. We're going to add some data there and check out our entire workflow for it, as well as track down a bug. So here you can see I've got my player data visible underneath game data. If you don't see yours, you can just expand it out. I've got a couple saved games in here, and if I save game and reload, my player data shows up. Now the reason I don't get my player data showing up automatically right now is because I didn't come in through the menu, and I don't have this binding up to anything. So we're going to need to address that. We're also going to want to store the position of our character so that we can reload that when our player comes back in, so they can come back into the same spot in the world. So let's stop playing. Well, first actually let's shoot and let's take a look at the console, because you see that we've got a couple errors down here as well. I'm going to reload again, and look, now we've got more errors. It went up by 4 every time I clicked. If I reload again, you'll see that it went up by 6 every time I clicked. Click again, it's going to go up by 8 every time I click. So something is happening every time I reload that's causing me to get 2 extra errors every single time I click. Let's take a look at what those errors are. We'll use that as our starting point and jumping into the code. So here you can see I can click on these. This one just tells me it's something in the input system, but the one below tells me it's something in the Blaster's use method, which is calling fire, which is called from the use equipped item here on player inventory line 46, and that's called by some delegates passed in from our input system. So let's go take a look at line 46 here. We can see here, this is where it's trying to use our equipped item, and the problem was that our item is destroyed or null. At least that's what the error message said. So let's take a look at the references for use equipped item, and click here or hit Shift F12. Whoops, the wrong key there. Shift F12, find our references, and see that we register for the performed event right here in awake. Let's check and see if we ever unregister for it. An easy way to do that would just be to search for my fire string. Just do a Control F and hit enter, and I can see that, well, we never unregister for that. We also don't unregister for the equip next event. So let's copy both of these lines on 19 and 20, and then down here add an on destroy so that we can remove the registration. I'll just paste it in and replace the pluses with a minus. What's happening here is that our player inventory, even though it's getting destroyed, it's still registered and bound into this player input event, which is, or this player input objects event, or its actions here, the input action asset technically, and that's tied into the event system, and that event registration doesn't go away automatically. So whenever we press fire, it's still trying to call into this destroyed inventory of a past character and then use its blaster that no longer exists either, and then eventually blows up. Now it doesn't blow up in use equipped item because there's nothing here that references an object that's actually been destroyed. The equipped item is still technically around, it just hasn't been completely destroyed. It's around because the C# part of it could never clean it up because there was still an event registered for it, but Unity has destroyed the object, so we can't actually use it, and we don't want to. Now that that's fixed, let's go back into Unity and double check it. All right, here we are. We'll shoot, save, reload, shoot, reload, shoot, reload. It's looking good. Now we're going to adjust our workflow for loading games. Instead of having our player data be empty here because we didn't come from the main menu, we're going to make sure that whenever we restore a level, we make sure that we've got some player data here and that we have the recent data actually bound up to our players. To do that, we're going to open up our game manager, and in our handle scene loaded, we're going to do 2 things. First, I'm going to just comment out the save game because I don't want it to keep saving game constantly. I want to just take tight control over that for a while, and then we'll figure out where we want it to actually save after we've got all of the save systems up and working. Instead, what I want to do is find all of our players. So I'll say var all players equals find objects of type, and we're going to remove this in a while, so don't worry about optimizing it. Find objects of type, not all. There we go, and we're going to find all of the player objects. We'll loop through each of the players, loop through each player in all players, and then we're going to bind all of those players to their data. So we'll say var data equals, and we'll want to call get player data, and here we need to give it the player index, but we don't have that yet, so we're going to need to get our player input as well. We'll say var player input equals player dot get component. We don't have it cached, do we? Nope. So we'll do get component, got to double check, and it's going to be that player input, and then we'll pass in the player input dot player input. There we go. dot player index. And again, don't worry about optimizing this. We're going to refactor this all the way into something more generic really soon. Now that we've got our data, we just need to tell our player to bind to that data. So now we're going to automatically bind up whenever we load into a scene. Let's go try it. All right, we're back in Unity. We'll press play. And we can now see our player data there. Let's go take some damage and see what happens. I take some damage, my health is going down, and if I go grab some coins over here, my coins go up. I can save, I can reload, and I can see that data looking right. Let's stop playing, and we'll go make a quick commit that we've fixed event deregistration and default, oops, hit the wrong key there. Fixed event deregistration and default player data, and check it in.